In the saga of America's colonial past, few places hold as much significance as Jamestown, Virginia. Established in 1607, Jamestown became the very first permanent English settlement in the New World. At first, it was nothing more than a fragile outpost clinging to the edge of a vast and unfamiliar continent. And yet, from this precarious beginning, the seeds of what would eventually become the United States were planted. But even as Jamestown laid the foundations for a new nation, it also concealed secrets. Secrets buried beneath the soil and preserved in the bones of the men who died there. Now, more than 4 centuries later, modern science has begun to uncover them. Through the power of ancient DNA analysis, researchers have identified 2 of the colony's earliest settlers, men interred beneath the floorboards of Jamestown's long-lost church. What they found not only solved a centuries-old mystery, but also revealed a scandal tied to the shadows of England's aristocracy. At the dawn of the 17th century, England, ruled by King James III, sought to expand its influence overseas and tap into the fabled wealth of the New World. In 1606, the Virginia Company of London was chartered with lofty ambitions to establish a colony in North America, discover gold and valuable commodities, and perhaps even find a westward passage to the Orient. That December, 3 small ships, the Susan Constant, the Godspeed, and the Discovery, set sail from London with 104 men and boys. After a grueling 4.5-month voyage, they finally reached the banks of the James River in May 1607, naming their settlement Jamestown in honor of their king. The colonists, however, were dangerously unprepared for the harsh realities of this new land. They faced outbreaks of deadly diseases like dysentery and typhoid, suffered from contaminated water sources, endured constant tension with the powerful Powhatan Confederacy, and were divided by internal conflicts. For a time, Captain John Smith's strict but resourceful leadership held the colony together. He secured essential trade with the Powhatan and imposed discipline when chaos threatened to destroy everything. But when Smith departed in 1609, Jamestown was plunged into an even darker chapter. The winter of 1609-1610 became infamous as the starving time. Besieged by the Powhatan, ravaged by famine and disease, the colonists dwindled from several hundred to just 60 desperate survivors. Many were on the brink of abandoning the colony altogether until salvation arrived in June 1610. A fleet sailed in, bringing supplies, fresh settlers, and a new leader, Thomas West, the 3rd Baron de la Warr, a seasoned nobleman and military commander. His arrival is widely credited with rescuing Jamestown from collapse. Alongside him came members of his extended family, brothers Francis, John, and Nathaniel West, as well as other kinsmen, ambitious gentlemen seeking either fortune or refuge in the untamed lands of Virginia. At the heart of Jamestown's community stood its church. The Anglican faith was inseparable from the colonists' daily lives, guiding their identity, their laws, and their sense of order. A crude wooden chapel was erected shortly after the settlement was founded, but by 1608, a sturdier church had risen within the triangular palisade of James Fort. This sacred space not only hosted worship services, but also became the resting place of the colony's most prominent figures, a practice carried over from England, where burial within the church was reserved for the elite. It was within the remnants of this very church, buried beneath its archaeological footprint, that the story of Jamestown's dark secret began to unfold. In 1994, archaeologist Dr. William Kelso launched the Jamestown Rediscovery Foundation, a project dedicated to uncovering the long-buried history of America's first permanent English colony. Nearly 2 decades later, in 2013 and 2014, excavations inside the chancel of the 1608 church site produced some of the most extraordinary discoveries in Jamestown's history. Archaeologists revealed 4 carefully arranged graves positioned in a way that made one thing clear: these were no ordinary settlers. Their placement within the sacred heart of the church signaled men of great social standing. These weren't simple pit burials hastily dug in the soil. They showed care, respect, and significance. 2 coffins in particular stood out, expertly crafted and unmistakably linked to individuals of influence. One of these coffins contained a remarkable treasure: the fragile remains of a spangled military sash shimmering with traces of silver thread and sequins. Such an adornment could only belong to a man of rank, a military officer and gentleman of status. By combining burial evidence, skeletal analysis to estimate age, and historical records including letters and official accounts, researchers began piecing together the puzzle of who these men were. The officer buried with the sash was believed to be Captain William West, a relative of Governor Thomas West, Lord de la Warr. Records show Captain West arrived with the governor in June 1610, but his service to the colony was short-lived. He died in battle against Powhatan warriors in late 1610 or early 1611, likely in his early 20s. Being laid to rest in the church chancel alongside other leaders was a fitting honor for a young man of noble birth who had fallen in defense of Jamestown. The second finely built coffin was thought to belong to Sir Ferdinando Wenman, another close relative of Governor West. His first cousin, Wenman's mother, Anne West, and Lord de la Warr's mother, Lady Anne Knollys West, were sisters. Wenman journeyed to Virginia in 1610, but tragically succumbed to illness only months later, at the age of about 34. Historical records identify him as the very first English knight buried in America. The other two graves were eventually identified as Reverend Robert Hunt, Jamestown's first Anglican minister who died in 1608, and Captain Gabriel Archer, a strong leader and vocal critic of John Smith who perished during the starving time. While these archaeological and historical clues strongly supported the researchers' identifications, they sought even deeper confirmation and turned to modern science. That's when the investigation crossed into the realm of forensic anthropology and ancient DNA analysis. This was the moment when history's curtain truly lifted. The genetic tests didn't just verify that these men were of European ancestry. Scientists studied their DNA in detail, particularly their mitochondrial DNA, a unique genetic marker passed down the maternal line, like a hidden family signature. Mitochondrial DNA is unique because it's passed down almost unchanged from mother to child. Sons receive it, but only daughters pass it on again to the next generation. This creates a genetic thread that stretches through time exclusively along the maternal line. So, when two people share an identical mitochondrial DNA pattern, it means they are linked through a shared mother, grandmother, or another female ancestor not too far back in their lineage. When scientists compared the DNA of Sir Ferdinando Wenman and Captain William West, they were astonished to discover that both carried the exact same mitochondrial signature. That meant the two men weren't just distant relatives within the broad West family tree. They were directly connected through the maternal side. At first, this revelation made little sense. Captain West carried the family surname, while Wenman's mother was a West. Naturally, historians assumed their relationship was defined through the paternal line, but cousins or nephews wouldn't normally share such a precise maternal match. The genetic evidence pointed to something far closer and far less expected. This contradiction forced researchers back into the archives, searching for overlooked details that might explain the mystery. And then, they found it. Buried within old legal documents tied to Captain William West's estate was a crucial clue. Testimony suggesting that William was not the son of the governor's brother, as long believed, but the child of the governor's aunt, Elizabeth West. And Elizabeth had never married. This revelation carried explosive implications. Captain William West, buried with honor inside the church chancel, remembered as the governor's nephew and nobleman of standing, was, in fact, the illegitimate son of Elizabeth West. In the rigid world of the 17th century, especially among aristocratic families, illegitimacy was more than a personal shame. It was a scandal capable of damaging reputations, inheritance rights, and family honor. Such children were often acknowledged privately, but erased from official records to preserve the family's image. Now it made sense. William had been supported by his influential relatives, given opportunity and respect, but the circumstances of his birth had been deliberately concealed for over 400 years. Through ancient DNA, the bones at Jamestown revealed more than names. They exposed a hidden scandal buried deep in the English aristocracy. This marked the first time in American history that genetics uncovered a secret of illegitimacy among colonial elites. And it sparks bigger questions. What other truths lie waiting in the ground? What other family secrets, erased from written history, could be resurrected by science? The potential is limitless, not just here at Jamestown, but at historical sites across the world. Thank you for tuning in. If this story sparked your curiosity, don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys where history and science come together. Until next time, keep searching, keep discovering.